Major Matthias Haig wiped sweat from his weathered brow and squinted at the tactical display hovering above the command table. The light cast harsh shadows across his face, accentuating the deep lines earned from 30 years of warfare. At 48, he was considered ancient by most Corps standards, but the United Terran Marine Corps didn't keep him around for his youthful vigor. They kept him because he was a killer. "Major, incoming transmission from UTMC Command," Lieutenant Davis announced, his voice carrying the crisp efficiency of youth. He couldn't have been more than 25. Haig grunted. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted, replaced by the stern face of General Wayland. Even through the shimmer of the long-range quantum transmission, Haig could see the strain in his old friend's eyes. "Matthias, we've got a situation on Drov 6. Colony's gone dark. High Command wants recon with extreme prejudice." "Divine extreme prejudice," Haig replied, reaching for his coffee. Black, bitter, and strong enough to strip paint, just like his outlook. "The Maruvians have been spotted in the sector. If they've taken Drov 6, we need to know yesterday." Haig's jaw tightened. The Maruvians, cybernetically enhanced warriors who'd broken from humanity centuries ago, evolving into something that barely resembled human anymore. They were relentless, cunning, and utterly without mercy. "Who've I got?" Haig asked. "Your pick of the roster, but keep it small. This is Black Ops. No official sanction." Haig nodded. "I'll need Grav, Sullivan, and Douglas." Wayland's eyebrow raised slightly. "Combined age of your fire team will be close to 200, Matthias. You want this done right, or you want it done pretty?" "I want it done yesterday," Wayland replied. "And those old bastards are the best we've got. Your dropship leaves in 4 hours." The transmission ended, leaving Haig alone with his thoughts and cooling coffee. He thumbed his comm. "Master Sergeant Sullivan, Gunny Grav. Master Sergeant Douglas, gear up and meet me in Briefing Room C in 1 hour. We're hunting." Master Sergeant Jack Sullivan was 51 years old and could still run the obstacle course faster than recruits half his age. 27 years in the Corps had honed his body into a weapon and his mind into something far more dangerous. He was cleaning his custom M12 plasma rifle when Haig's message came through. Hunting. One word that told him everything he needed to know. Sullivan smiled grimly as he reassembled the rifle in under 30 seconds. The weapon had been with him longer than any of his 3 ex-wives. Gunnery Sergeant Michael Grav was bench-pressing 250 kilos when his comm buzzed. At 44, his body was a mass of scar tissue and synthetically enhanced muscle. His left arm was completely prosthetic, a souvenir from a close encounter with a Maruvian war machine on Epsilon 3. The doctors had offered him a clone-grown replacement. He'd opted for the military-gray cybernetic instead. More reliable, he'd said. Less likely to flinch when it mattered. Grav racked the weights and sat up. Briefing Room C. That meant the Major was putting together a special operations team. Good. He'd been bored for weeks. Master Sergeant Lynn Douglas was the youngest of the group at 42 and the quietest. Currently, he was meditating in his quarters, a practice that had earned him the nickname Zen from his squad mates years ago. Few knew that his meditation wasn't for spiritual enlightenment. It was the only way he'd found to quiet the screams that had lived in his head since the massacre at New Shanghai. Douglas's eyes opened at the exact moment his comm chimed. He read the message, then rose in one fluid motion. Within minutes, his gear was packed and ready. Douglas traveled light, except for his custom vibroblade collection, which filled an entire duffel bag. Briefing Room C was a small, windowless box deep within the heart of Fort Yamamoto. When Sullivan arrived 15 minutes early, Haig was already there, poring over classified files. "Maruvians?" he asked without preamble. Haig nodded. "Probable. Drov 6? Sullivan whistled. "Mining colony? 30,000 civilians?" "That's the official count," Haig replied. "Unofficially, ONI had a research station there, quantum weapons development." "Shit." "Exactly." The door hissed open as Grav and Douglas entered together. Neither spoke, simply taking their seats at the table. No salutes, no formalities. They had long ago dispensed with such things among themselves. "Gentlemen," Haig acknowledged, "we've got a problem." He activated the holoprojector. A schematic of Drove 6 appeared. A rocky, inhospitable world that nonetheless contained some of the richest titanium deposits in the sector. Colony went dark 36 hours ago. Last transmission mentioned unusual seismic activity in the northern quadrant, where the deepest mines are located. "Maruvians don't cause earthquakes," Grav noted, his voice a gravelly rumble. "No," Haig agreed, "but their burrowing ships do." Douglas leaned forward, studying the projection. "Underground approach. Smart. Colony's orbital defenses are top tier." "Only facilities?" Sullivan asked. "Here," Haig indicated a spot 50 kilometers from the main colony. "Built into a mountain, self-contained. Theoretically could survive even if the colony was wiped out." "But they're dark too," Grav said. It wasn't a question. "Complete blackout," Haig confirmed. "High command is sweating bullets. Whatever the eggheads were working on there, they don't want it falling into Maruvian hands." "Extraction?" Douglas asked, using his customary economy of words. "Negative. This is recon only. Get in, confirm Maruvian presence, assess the situation with the research facility, then get out. Orbital strike will follow." Sullivan's eyes narrowed. 30,000 civilians, Major." Haig met his gaze steadily. "I know, Master Sergeant, but if the Maruvians get their hands on quantum destabilization tech, we're looking at millions of casualties across a dozen systems." A heavy silence fell over the room. "If there are survivors," Haig added quietly, "we bring them home. But the mission comes first." They all nodded. It wasn't the first time they'd been asked to make impossible choices. It probably wouldn't be the last. "Questions?" Haig asked. "Equipment restrictions?" Grav inquired. "None. We're going in hot and prepared for anything. Full combat load, plus whatever specialty items you deem necessary." "Timeline?" Rodriguez asked. "Dropship leaves in 3 hours. We'll hit atmosphere at approximately 200 local time. Should give us cover of darkness for the initial insertion." Douglas spoke up. "Extraction plan? Same dropship, different LZ. We'll set up a rendezvous point once we have better intel on the ground situation." Haig stood, signaling the end of the briefing. "We're wheels up at 1900. Any personal business, handle it now." As they filed out, Haig caught Sullivan by the arm. "Jack," he said quietly, "I need your head in the game." He met his eyes. They'd known each other too long for pretense. "Always is, Matthias." "This one feels different." Sullivan nodded slowly. "They're all different. That's how they get you." He paused. "But we're coming back. All of us. I didn't survive this long to die on some godforsaken rock." Haig wished he shared his certainty. The dropship was a UT-77 Pelican, an older model retrofitted with state-of-the-art stealth systems. The pilot, Captain Walsh, was another veteran, 38 and with more combat drops than anyone else in the flight wing. "Major," he greeted Haig as he boarded. "Like old times?" "Let's hope not," he replied. "Last time we flew together you crashed us into a swamp on Gamma Prime." Walsh grinned. "And yet here you are, specifically requesting me for this op. Must have done something right." "You got us out alive," Haig conceded. "That's all that matters in the end." The rest of the team boarded in silence, each carrying their personal gear along with standard-issue combat packs. They secured themselves in the jump seats as Walsh began pre-flight check. Haig looked at his team, Sullivan checking his weapon for the dozenth time, Grav with his eyes closed but clearly alert, Douglas as still as a statue. Old warriors, survivors, the kind of Marines they didn't make anymore. "Listen up," he said, his voice cutting through the engine noise. "This mission is strictly off the books. If we don't make it back, there won't be any medals, any memorial services. Just a footnote in some classified report." "So, business as usual," Sullivan quipped. "Pretty much," Haig agreed. "But I want to be clear, our primary objective is intel gathering. If the Maruvians are there in force, we are not engaging unless absolutely necessary. We're too old and too valuable to waste on heroics." "Speak for yourself, old man," Grav rumbled, opening one eye. "I've got at least one good suicide charge left in me." "Save it," Haig ordered. "I need every one of you functioning at 100%. We go in, we confirm the situation, we get out. That's it." The dropship's engines roared to life and the deck vibrated beneath their feet. "Besides," Haig added, a grim smile touching his lips, "if things go sideways, we'll have plenty of opportunities to die gloriously." 10 minutes to jump," Walsh called from the cockpit. As the dropship lifted off, Haig felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, weaker now than in his youth, but still there. Still enough to sharpen his senses and quiet the voice in his head that whispered he was too old for this. Age had its disadvantages in combat, true, but it had given them something in return: experience, judgment, the ability to know when to fight and when to fade away. In a galaxy where most Marines didn't live to see 30, they were anomalies. Dangerous anomalies. The dropship accelerated toward the upper atmosphere, carrying 4 old Marines toward what might be their final mission. But Haig had long ago stopped believing in final missions. There was always one more fight, one more desperate situation that required people willing to do whatever was necessary, and until someone finally put him in the ground, Matthias Haig would answer the call. Because that's what Marines did, especially the old ones. The dropship cut through Drov 6 upper atmosphere like a knife, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Inside, the veteran Marines checked their gear one final time. Haig's loadout was standard for Force Recon. M27 Gauss rifle with underslung launcher, M5 sidearm, and enough ammunition to start a small war. The only non-regulation item he carried was an antique K-bar combat knife, a family heirloom passed down from his great-grandfather, who'd fought in conflicts long forgotten. Sullivan's loadout was standard for Force Recon: M27 Gauss rifle with underslung launcher, M5 sidearm, and enough ammunition to start a small war. The only non-regulation item he carried was an antique K-bar combat knife, a family heirloom passed down from his great-grandfather, who'd fought in conflicts long forgotten. Grav was the heavy weapons specialist. His primary was a heavy weapon specialist to wield effectively. Grav managed with just his cybernetic arm and decades of practice. He also carried a shoulder-mount rocket launcher and, somewhat incongruously, a massive wrench. When asked about it once, he had simply replied, "Sometimes you need to fix things, sometimes you need to break them." Douglas traveled lighter than the others, favoring mobility over firepower. His primary weapon was a silenced SMG, but everyone knew his real weapons were the dozen vibro blades concealed about his person, and his unparalleled skill in wielding them. 2 minutes to drop zone, Walsh's voice crackled over the comm. Sensors show no active defenses in the area, but there's significant electromagnetic interference from the settlement. Could be a trap, Rodriguez noted. Could be a malfunction, Haig countered. Either way, we're going in. Walsh, get us as close as you can to these coordinates. He transmitted the landing zone data to her console. That's 3 clicks from the colony perimeter, she replied. Best I can do without risking detection. It'll do. The dropship began its descent, the hull creaking as turbulence buffeted the craft. Haig felt the familiar sensation of his stomach trying to climb into his throat. No matter how many combat drops he experienced, that feeling never quite went away. 30 seconds, Walsh announced. Get ready for a quick exit. I'm not sticking around longer than necessary. The Marines unbuckled and stood, gripping overhead handholds as the dropship made its final approach. The rear hatch began to lower, revealing the darkness of Drov's night. Go, go, go! Haig ordered as the dropship hovered 2 meters above the rocky ground. They jumped out in practiced order. Douglas first, then Rodriguez, Grav, and finally Haig. As soon as Haig's boots hit the ground, the dropship was already pulling away, its engines receding to a distant whine before disappearing entirely. "Comm check," Haig sub-vocalized, his words transmitted directly to the team's neural implants. 3 acknowledgments came back in rapid succession. "Local conditions?" he asked. "Atmosphere breathable but thin," Sullivan reported, checking his wrist scanner. 16% oxygen, temperature -5 Celsius. "Radiation levels normal," Douglas added. Grav was scanning the horizon with enhanced vision. No movement within visual range, settlement lights visible to the northwest but dimmer than they should be. Haig nodded, then gestured forward. "Standard recon formation. Douglas on point, Sullivan left flank, Grav right. Move out." They advanced through the rocky terrain with the fluid, practiced movements of veteran soldiers. Despite their age, there was nothing stiff or hesitant in how they moved, just the careful precision that came from decades of combat experience. The landscape of Drav 6 was desolate, black rock and rust-colored soil stretching to the horizon, broken only by jagged ridges and deep ravines. 2 small moons cast eerie, overlapping shadows across the terrain. After 30 minutes of silent progress, Douglas halted, raising a closed fist. The others immediately took cover. "Movement," Douglas whispered through the comm. 200 meters ahead, moving east to west. Haig crawled forward until he was beside Douglas, then followed his gaze. In the distance, illuminated by moonlight, was a humanoid figure moving with an unnatural gait. Haig extended his rifle's scope, enhancing the image. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. The figure wasn't human, not anymore. Its body was a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine, with exposed circuitry pulsing beneath translucent skin. Its movements were jerky but purposeful, like a marionette controlled by an inexperienced puppeteer. "Maruvian scout," Haig confirmed. "Looks like an early generation conversion. Should I take it?" Sullivan asked, his rifle already tracking the target. Haig considered for a moment. "Negative. We don't know if they have a network connection. Killing it might alert others." "So we let it pass?" Grav didn't sound happy about the idea. "For now," Haig replied, "our mission is intelligence gathering. Let's see where it goes." They watched as the Maruvian scout continued its patrol, eventually disappearing behind a ridge to the west. "That confirms presence," Douglas noted, "but not numbers." "We need to get closer to the settlement," Haig decided. "If the Maruvians are here in force, we need to know what we're dealing with before calling in that orbital strike." They resumed their advance, now moving with even greater caution. As they approached the colony's perimeter, signs of conflict became evident. Blast marks on rocks, spent ammunition casings, and eventually, bodies. The first corpse they encountered was a colonial militia member, identifiable by the remnants of a uniform. The body had been dead for at least a day, with clear signs of plasma weapon damage. "They fought back," Sullivan observed, kneeling beside the body. "Didn't help them much," Grav replied, gesturing ahead where more bodies were visible. Haig moved to the nearest ridge that offered a view of the settlement. What he saw made his blood run cold. The colony of New Providence had been a standard mining outpost, prefabricated buildings arranged in concentric circles around a central administrative hub, with the mining facilities extending outward like spokes on a wheel. Now, many of those buildings were damaged or destroyed. But that wasn't what concerned Haig most. It was the activity. Maruvians moved throughout the colony, dozens of them visible even from this distance. Some were clearly converted humans, shambling with that characteristic jerky motion. Others were full combat models, sleek, deadly machines with only the barest hints of their human origins remaining. But most disturbing were the collection teams. Groups of combat models herding surviving colonists toward the central hub. The civilians moved with the shuffling gait of the defeated, many wounded, all clearly terrified. "They're not just killing them," Sullivan whispered, having joined Haig at his observation post. "They're taking prisoners." "Conversion candidates," Haig corrected grimly. "Raw material." The Maruvians' most horrific practice was their method of reproduction, capturing humans and subjecting them to cybernetic conversion, transforming them into new Maruvians. Some were converted into combat units, others into worker drones or specialized forms. All retained just enough of their human consciousness to understand what had happened to them, but not enough to resist their new programming. We need to move toward the ONI facility, Haig decided after several minutes of observation. That's our primary objective. What about the civilians? Sullivan asked. Haig's jaw tightened. We'll note their presence in our report. If there's an opportunity for extraction during our mission, we'll take it. But the research facility has to come first. Major, Douglas's quiet voice came over the eastern perimeter. Something's happening. Haig shifted his position to look where Douglas indicated. A group of Maruvian combat models was escorting what appeared to be human prisoners, but these weren't colonists. They wore the remains of laboratory uniforms, and one was being dragged along, apparently unconscious. ONI personnel, Haig realized. They must have captured the facility already. Or these are the only survivors, Graves suggested. Haig made a quick decision. Change of plans. We're going to track that group, see where they're taking the ONI staff. That might give us insight into what the Maruvians are after. The team acknowledged the order and began to move, skirting the colony's perimeter to avoid detection. As they navigated through the rocky terrain, Haig couldn't help but reflect on the situation. If the Maruvians had already secured the quantum weapons research, an orbital strike might be too late. They needed to determine exactly what had been compromised and, if possible, eliminate that knowledge before it could be transmitted to the main Maruvian fleet. That might mean a suicide mission after all. Haig pushed the thought aside, one problem at a time. First, they needed information. Then they could decide how to act. As the four old Marines moved through the darkness of Drove 6, following the Maruvian patrol and its human prisoners, Haig felt a familiar sensation settling in his gut. Not fear, but the cold certainty that before this mission ended, hard choices would need to be made. Choices that only old warriors, those who had seen too much and survived too long, could make without hesitation. Because some things were worse than death. The prisoners being marched ahead of them would soon learn that truth firsthand. Unless four aging Marines could do something about it. Thank you, channel member Caleb Fast, for making this video possible. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.